Hi everybody, I'm Tim from troutandfeather.com, and in this fly tying tutorial we're going to tie a great emerger pattern from Tom Rosenbauer of Orvis, known as Rosenbauer's rabbit foot emerger. Stay tuned. Before we start tying this pattern, let's take a quick peek at it and talk about a few things that you'll notice during the tying. For starters, this is tied on a short shank hook, so keep that in mind whenever you kind of make your proportions compared to some of the other hooks and the styles that you tie on. You'll notice at the very back we have a little bit of an Antron or Zelon trailing shuck, and that's going to represent this fly and how it's making its emergence from some type of a nymph to that adult, either a mayfly or a caddis. We have a really great body. We're going to talk about that body material. It's called semi-seal. We have a couple things going on around this wing spot. We have some CDC fibers that are underneath some snowshoe rabbit. Those CDC fibers are going to represent the insect legs, and what's great about those is that they're just going to be really coming down and just touching the water in different places, doing a great job to basically go all over. And then we have this snowshoe rabbit, and what that's going to do is really create a prominent wing. It's something that the trout sometimes can key on, especially during this emerging stage. And then finally we have an olive thorax tied with some SLF spiky dubbing at the front. So without any further ado, let's get a clean hook in this vise and start tying this pattern. Let's start tying this Rosenbauer's rabbit foot emerger. In my Stonfo transformer vise, I have a hook from Allen Fly Fishing. It's their N304. It's a really neat dry fly and nymph hook. What I like about it is that it's a shorter shank and it has a straight eye. Keep in mind with that shorter shank, sometimes you want to tie a little bit further back. And in fact, if you look at the way I have it in the vise, I'm really trying my best to be able to have access to the rear portion of the hook. So I'm actually going to tie a little bit down the bend. So watch for that whenever I add my first material. Well, before that material, we're going to add a little bit of thread. This is some 8/0 uni thread. The color is olive dun. I'm just going to tie this back about 2/3 of the way. And then we're going to add a trailing shuck. Now what this trailing shuck is going to represent will be that shuck that's kind of trailing behind the emerging mayfly or the emerging caddis. The material that I'm using is called ice fur, and if you notice it, it's really reflective of all the light. I don't want to grab too much of this stuff, just a small little portion around that size. I'm going to just lock it in place. And this is where I'm going to tie back. And if you notice, I'm actually pulling the fibers towards my side of the hook so that when I wrap them, they go straight. And I'm starting to wrap a little bit down the bend. And I do apologize. Here's the packaging. Alright, let's get rid of these excess butt fibers. And I'm going to trim my shuck right now. I want it to be about the body length, maybe a hair shorter. Next, we're going to add the dubbing. And I wish I had the actual packaging for you today, but I don't. This is some really neat dubbing that I got from Bob Silver. Bob is a member of the Mesilla Valley Fly Fishers Club. I met him once. He lives down in New Mexico, and he gave me some of this really awesome dubbing. So I'll first give you a look at this stuff, and it is called semi-seal. The color is either a Yukon olive or a golden olive. This is not seal dubbing, but it is a synthetic, and it has just some really great properties. It has just some Antron in it. It looks like there's some type of a wiry fiber, and it actually dubs relatively decent considering it looks like it would just go on atrociously. So Bob, I really appreciate you giving me some of this. I got to get some more of this stuff because it looks great on so many different patterns. So you'll notice I didn't wet my fingers too much, just a hair, just to kind of help guide this stuff in place. You don't have to add too much of it, which is really nice. It really seems to dub nicely. So after we create that noodle, I'm just going to start winding this up the hook. That trailing shuck got caught there a little bit on me. you'll notice it has a really buggy look to it. And what I'm not liking is I put a little bit too much on. And I don't want to kind of crowd this front section. So let me see if I can get this stuff working. Because there's so many of those really buggy fibers in there, I'm just going to trim that, add a little bit more of this stuff, and then finish the body. We want to bring the body up about 70%, 75% of the way. I think that's going to work right there. Just like before, I'm just kind of holding this material out. As I wrap my thread, I'm just going to get rid of it. Now, if you take a look at it, you're going to see that this semi-seal is extremely buggy. It's got a lot of stuff going on. But because it's so buggy, and also because it's got all these really great materials, those materials are not trimmed. And what I want to do is just go through and just trim them down a little bit. Can you leave them? Absolutely. But I prefer just to have them a little tighter to the body. All right, so now we have a pretty great start on this fly. The next thing we're going to do is add the legs. So I'm just going to grab a little CDC feather. I'm just going to take some of these fibers, just trim them off, just pull them off. Because this is a size 18, I don't want to have that many legs on there. So once I have this kind of narrowed down a little bit, I'm going to lock it in place. And I want to make it so it goes to about the bend, maybe a little bit under that. But remember, because this is a short shanked hook, we don't have to really focus on making them all proportional based on the hooks that we use on a regular basis. So please keep that in mind when you're using this. And what I want to do is, I just really want to take my time to get these fibers so they're really going all over the place. That's an important characteristic to this fly, and it's having these legs being a prominent feature to represent that emerging mayfly or that emerging caddis. So once I have them really pushed down on both sides, then I can truly lock those CDC fibers in place. Okay, I might just do my best to get all those things. Get my thread back where I want it. And now we're going to add our wing, and that's going to be some snowshoe rabbit. This one is dyed done. It's got a really great look to it. When you're picking some of the fibers up a little bit closer to the toes, I'm looking for some of those really wiry fibers. There's just something that's incredible about this material, and you can see they just seem to kind of go all over the place. And those are the ones I want. I want the ones that are a little bit of a medium to darker dun. So I'm just going to pick out a little clump of those. And by little, I really do mean just a little clump. Let me show you what I have here. So that's going to be the clump, and it's going to rest right on top of those CDC fibers. Now what you're going to notice is that the butt end of these can really just bulk up quick. So don't be afraid to just hold it by its tips. Just wiggle your finger through those butt end fibers to help kind of reduce the amount of all that excess material. Then we're going to place it right on top, transfer it over, and lock it in place with a couple wraps. And you'll notice, just like I said before, there is just a lot of excess up here. Now the one thing that many tyers have noticed with this stuff is that once you have this, if you've just locked it in over the top, it has a tendency to spin. So don't be afraid to pick up these butt fibers, kind of build like a little bit of a thread dam between that snowshoe and the eye, just to kind of help lift them up a little bit. And once they start shooting up, then you can take a really fine pair of scissors, get in there, and make a trim to get all those fibers out of there. Now at this point, if they still seem to be crowding the eye, which they tend to be a little bit, we can try to make another cut, but you're going to notice not too much more is going to get out of there. But what you can definitely do is take your fingernail, just kind of work them back a little bit. And then now we will truly lock them in by taking our thread and just wrapping through all those base fibers. Then we'll work that back to the original tie-in point. And then we're going to finish this off with our thorax. For this, I'm going to recommend just a little bit of a darker dubbing. I'm going to be using some Squirrel SLF spiky dubbing. I really love the look of this stuff. It's got a little bit of antron in it. It's got some natural materials. The color that I'm going with is a color I use really frequently. It's called brown olive. I'll show you what this looks like. So I'm just going to try to get a nice clump that really gets a representation of everything. Let's get this dubbed on there. And after my first 2 wraps, I want to look on the bottom, make sure I can't see my thread showing through it all. Once I'm sure it's not, we can just finish our head off. When we get to the eye, let's just go to a, let's not do that. Let's go to a quick half hitch just to make sure everything's locked in there. And once it is, then we can go immediately to our whip finish. Now we can just kind of look around, see if we have any stray fibers we want to get out of there. Looks like I have a few. Not going to do too much damage because in general this is a really buggy pattern and we really want it to look just this way. So this is a great fly, and now let's talk a little bit more about it, both from a fly fishing and a fly tying perspective. As you just saw, tying this pattern is really easy. But more importantly, whenever you fish this one, it is one of those flies that just quite honestly works. Let's talk a little bit more about Rosenbauer's rabbit foot emerger. Well, for starters, there are 2 what I call almost magic materials in this fly, and that's CDC and snowshoe rabbit. I don't know what it is about those materials, but if you add them to a fly, it's almost guaranteed to be a winner, and this one definitely fits that criteria. So those are 2 materials I probably wouldn't modify. However, there are some that you could consider kind of, I don't want to say deleting, but revising a little bit based on the type of pattern you want to fish. Now for starters, whenever we think about the tail of this, we're using an antron style material, and that's going to represent the trailing shuck. Now that trailing shuck is going to be kind of like the nymphal shuck. So let's think just a little bit about mayfly nymphs. As they start their emergence and they get close to the surface of the water, they're going to split open and the adult is going to crawl out of them. As that adult mayfly is crawling out, the nymphal shuck kind of gets pushed to the back. This antron is going to represent that. Now, do you have to fish an antron style nymphal shuck? No, absolutely not. You can make it look just like a regular mayfly nymph tailing. We're talking about pheasant tail fibers, coq de leon, hare's ear fibers. Basically, the sky's the limit. But the reason we really like to fish that antron style shuck near the surface is because, quite honestly, as that mayfly is making its emergence and it's in that surface film, more than likely that shuck is still going to be attached, and that can sometimes act as a trigger for those trout. They see that shuck and they say, this is something that's in a really vulnerable state and I need to take advantage of it. Now the other modifications you can make involve the body color and the thorax color. The one thing that I really like, I really try to stick with is go with a body color that really mimics the mayfly nymph. So something around that pheasant tail color. I'm talking about an olive, a brown, but tends to be a darker color. Now the head of this fly is something that I really do vary quite a bit. And in most cases, I'll make the color of the head something that's going to be representing the mayfly adult body color. So if I'm going to go with we'll say a sulfur emerger, then I'm going to have that head be, or that thorax, be more of that sulfur color. If I'm going to be representing, we'll say a Hendrickson, then again, I'm going to make that head more of a Hendrickson style of color. So think about those kind of things that we have going on, those different changes that you can make to this fly, and it will still remain an effective one. Trust me on that. Now the other thing that I did mention during the tying was playing around with some new dubbing materials, and I got that great dubbing by a gentleman named Bob Silver whenever I was out in New Mexico. So Bob, thank you so much for sharing that new dubbing material with me. It is some great stuff, as you know, and I hope you bought some stock in that company. I definitely need some. Well, with all that said, thank you so much for watching this fly tying tutorial. If you'd like to watch more of these, please check out my website, which is called troutandfeather.com. I also have a Facebook page and an Instagram account, so you can check me out on all those different social media platforms and see what types of stuff I'm posting related to fly fishing and fly tying articles, pictures, and just other news and tidbits out there in the fly fishing and fly tying communities. If you have any questions or comments for me, you can email me at tcammisa@gmail.com, or by all means leave a comment down in the comments section below, especially if you like to fish emergers. Talk a little bit more about how you like to fish them. Primarily, whenever I'm fishing emergers, I'm fishing them a single fly at the end of my tippet, and I want them so they're just resting in that surface film, maybe dripping down a little bit. So the only thing I really want to see on this fly is going to be that snowshoe rabbit wing kind of sticking up, and I want the rest of that body just angled down a little bit in the water. Is that how you like to fish them, or are there other methods that you go for? Again, please mention those down in the comments section below. Well, once again, thank you everyone so much, and special thanks go out to Tom Rosenbauer from Orvis for really creating just a special fly for all of us. I'll see you guys next time.